6-3. 6-4. Remember that scoreline. Because 6 weeks ago, in Berlin, on grass, Alex Eala beat Elina Svitolina 6-3, 6-4. And last night in Washington, on a hard court, Alex Eala beat Elina Svitolina 6-3, 6-4. Same games. Same margin. Different continent. Different surface. Different month. Now, upsets happen in tennis every single week. Somebody wakes up hot, somebody wakes up flat, and a ranking gets embarrassed for 2 hours. That is normal. That is Tuesday. But upsets do not repeat themselves to the exact game on 2 completely different surfaces. That is not luck. That is not a bad day. That is a lock. Somewhere in the last 2 months, a 21-year-old from the Philippines figured out something about a former world number 3 that nobody else on this tour has figured out. And she has now proved it twice. So, here is the question I want you sitting with for the next 20 minutes. What does Alex Eala know? Because I have watched both of these matches back. And I am telling you the answer is not what the highlight reels are selling you. There is a number from last night that I have not seen a single broadcast mention. 24-13. Hold on to that. We are going to come back to it, and when we do, the entire match is going to look different to you. And there is something else. At one point in the second set, with the match still genuinely on the line, Elina Svitolina threw her racket down onto the court. A former world number 3. An Olympic medalist. The reigning Italian Open champion. 20 titles. And she stood there and slammed her racket into the hard court in front of a Washington crowd. Everyone is sharing that clip today as a meltdown. A loss of composure. A veteran cracking. It is not. By the end of this video, you are going to understand why that racket hitting the ground was the single most important piece of technical information in the entire match. Not the most dramatic. The most important. It told you exactly what was happening inside that match, and almost nobody watching it caught what it actually meant. So here is what we are doing. First, that number. 24-13. And why it decided this thing before the first set even finished. Then the real reason Svitolina's game did not just lose, it collapsed from the inside. And then the part that matters most, because in a matter of hours Eala walks back onto that court against a 4-time Grand Slam champion, and everything we are about to uncover either holds up or falls apart. But before I show you any of it, you need to understand who Elina Svitolina actually is. Because if you do not, you are going to badly underrate what just happened in Washington. Let me clear something up, because I have seen a lot of comments this morning getting this badly wrong. Elina Svitolina is not a faded name. She is not a former great hanging around for one more paycheck. She is 31 years old, she is the world number 10, she was the 2nd seed in Washington, and she is the reigning Italian Open champion. She won that title in May. 3 months ago. Go back further and it gets heavier. Former world number 3. Over 20 career titles. An Olympic bronze medal from Tokyo. Semifinals at Wimbledon, semifinals at the US Open, semifinals at the Australian Open, and a stack of French Open quarterfinals on top of it. This is a player who has been inside the last 4 of 3 different majors. She has been doing this at the highest level since Eala was in grade school. So when I tell you an unseeded 21-year-old just did this to her twice in 6 weeks, I need you to actually feel the weight of that. Not nod along. Feel it. But here is the part that matters more than the resume, and this is the piece you have to understand or nothing else in this video will land. Svitolina does not win the way you think tennis players win. She is not a power player. She is not out there trying to blast you off the court in 4 shots. Svitolina is a counterpuncher. An attrition player. Her entire game is built on absorption. You hit hard. She takes your pace and sends it back deeper than you want it. You go for a winner, she is already there. You try again, she is already there again. And on the 4th attempt, or the 9th, or the 14th, you finally miss. She does not beat you. She waits for you to beat yourself. Think about it like a fight. Svitolina is not a knockout puncher. She has never been a knockout puncher. She is a 12-round fighter. She does not need to win in the 2nd minute. She needs you tired in the 8th. And the way she gets you tired is not by hitting harder. It is by making every single exchange feel exactly the same as the last one, over and over, until your patience runs out before her legs do. Which means her real weapon is not a forehand or a backhand or a serve. Her real weapon is rhythm. Now let me introduce the other side of this, because a lot of you found this channel through last night, and you might not know the full picture yet. Alexandra Eala, 21 years old. From the Philippines. 5'9". Left-handed, with a two-handed backhand. She grew up training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, which means she has been marinating in Spanish grinding tennis since she was a kid. In 2022, she won the US Open Girls Singles title, the first Filipino to ever win a junior major. In 2025, she reached the semifinals of the Miami Open, a 1,000-level event, as a wild card, beating Madison Keys and Iga Swiatek along the way. And then last month at Wimbledon, she beat the defending champion Swiatek again to reach the fourth round, becoming the first Filipino player in history to reach the second week of a Grand Slam. And here is the stat that should stop you cold. In 2026, Alexandra Eala has played top 10 opponents 8 times. She has won 6 of them. 6. That is not a lucky run. That is not a hot week. That is a conversion rate that most players ranked in the 20s do not touch in an entire career, let alone in 7 months. And I want to say this here, because right now is the exact moment in a video like this where people drift off with the story half told. If you are the kind of person who wants the real reason instead of the highlight package, stay with me and subscribe, because I am going to be breaking down her semifinal the moment it finishes, and you are going to want the context you are about to get. Because here is the question that actually decides everything. If Svitolina's whole game is built on making you crack first, what happens when she walks into somebody who will not give her a rhythm to crack you with? Let me show you the number. 24-13. That is return points won in the first set. Eala to Svitolina. Almost double. Against a top 10 player, on that player's preferred surface, in a quarterfinal. Sit with that for a second, because it tells you what kind of match this actually was. This was not a serving contest. Nobody won this thing with aces. This was a return war. And here is the detail that proves it. The first 5 service games of the entire match were all broken. All of them. Nobody held. Not once, in 5 straight games. 2 professional tennis players walked onto that court, and neither one of them could win a single game on their own serve for almost 20 minutes. That is chaos. That is the kind of scoreline you see when both players have completely dismantled the other one's first shot of the point. And Eala won that first set in 43 minutes. Across the full match, she broke Svitolina 6 separate times. So let me walk you through 3 specific moments, because the story is inside them. Moment 1. First set, Eala leading 4-3, serving, Svitolina finally finds something. She gets to 0-40. 3 break points. 3 chances to level the set and drag it back into her world, the world of long sets and long rallies and a young player slowly running out of belief. This is the exact situation Svitolina has built a 20-title career on. Apply pressure, wait, let the moment do the work for you. Eala won 5 straight points. Not one clutch shot. 5 points in a row, from 0-40 down, at 4-3 in a quarterfinal, at 21 years old, against a former world number 3. She held for 5-3, then broke Svitolina in the next game to close the set. And I want you to actually think about that instead of just hearing it. 3 break points. A player who has been to 3 major semifinals standing on the other side of the net. What is going on in the head of somebody that young that lets that happen? Hold that question. It matters later. Moment 2. Second set. Svitolina breaks in the very first game and goes up 2-0. Then she holds the gap and leads 3-2. This is where the script is supposed to write itself. The veteran absorbs the young player's best punch in set 1, then takes over. Experience beats youth. It is the oldest story in tennis, and it plays out somewhere on tour every single week. Except in the 6th game, Eala goes hunting. She does not sit back and wait for the momentum to swing. She does not try to survive the set. She goes directly after Svitolina's second serve. Attacks it. Takes it early. Gets her first break of the second set out of it, then backs it up with a clean hold to lead 4-3. And that is the detail I need you to notice, because it changes what this match was. She did not wait for Svitolina to miss. She went and found the weakest ball in Svitolina's toolkit and she hit it first. That is not instinct. Instinct at 21 is to protect the lead you had and hope. That is a decision. Somebody made a plan, and somebody executed the plan while trailing in a quarterfinal. So who made the plan? Moment 3. How this thing actually ended. Eala, serving for the match at 5-4. She gets to match point. Svitolina saves it. She saves a second one. She drags the game back to deuce, and for about 90 seconds it looks like the veteran might have one more escape left in her. Then Svitolina hits a backhand into the net. And then she double faults. That is how it finished. Not with an Eala winner. Not with a passing shot down the line and a roar from the crowd. It ended with the world number 10 missing twice in a row, on her own serve, with the match still there to be saved. Now, stack all of that up, 6 breaks of serve. 5 straight broken games to open the match. A first set gone in 43 minutes. 0-40 converted into a hold. A closing game that ended in a double fault. If you only look at those numbers, you walk away with a clean conclusion. Eala returned better, so Eala won. That is the version most channels are going to publish today, and it is not wrong. But it is shallow. Because it describes what happened without touching why it happened. And here is what has been bothering me since I watched this back. Elina Svitolina does not double fault matches away. Svitolina does not spray forehands and backhands into the net under pressure. That is the entire point of her. She is the most reliable ball striker in that draw. Her whole career is built on being the one who does not miss. She has spent 15 years being the player on the other side of the net who is still there on the 14th shot. Last night, she was the one cracking. In both sets. Against a player ranked 18 spots below her. So no. The real question was never how many times Eala broke serve. The real question is why a former world number 3, playing the game she has played her entire life, suddenly could not stop making errors. And once you understand that, you cannot unsee it. Here is the piece nobody is talking about. Alexandra Eala is left-handed. And I know how that sounds. It sounds like trivia. It sounds like the thing a commentator mentions once in the first game and never brings up again. Stay with me, because it is not trivia. It is the whole thing. Remember what we established about Svitolina. She does not win points. She wins patterns. Her entire game is built on knowing what ball is coming third, because she has seen that exact ball 10,000 times. Cross-court forehand, comes back cross-court. She steps in. She redirects. She has run that sequence in practice, in warm-ups, in matches, on every surface, in every country, for 15 years. It lives in her hands now, not her head. That is what a counterpuncher actually is. Not somebody patient. Somebody who has memorized the shape of a tennis point so completely that she can be one shot ahead of you without thinking about it. Now put a left-hander in front of her. A left-hander does not just hit the ball from a different side. A left-hander flips the geometry of the entire court. Eala's forehand, her heaviest, most aggressive shot, does not travel into Svitolina's forehand the way it does against every right-hander on tour. It travels into her backhand. Every cross-court ball arrives at the wrong angle. Every ball that spins away is now spinning toward. The wide serve that should pull her one direction pulls her the other. For a player who lives on repetition, that is not difficulty, that is amnesia. Her hands have nothing to reach for. So, think about it like this. Svitolina is a fighter who counts beats. She wins because she knows beat 3 arrives after beat 2. She does not have to look for it. She just counts. Eala does not play beat 2. Eala is left-handed. She takes the ball early. She changes direction constantly. She is playing off rhythm. And a fighter who counts beats, standing across from music with no time signature, does not lose because she is weaker. She loses because there is nothing left to count. That is why the errors came. Not nerves. Not age. Not a bad day. The forehands and backhands started missing because the reference point was gone, and when a pattern player loses her reference point, she has no second gear to fall back on. Power players can swing harder. Servers can serve bigger. A counterpuncher who has been decoded has literally nothing else in the bag. Which brings us back to the racket. Somewhere in the middle of that second set, with the errors piling up, Svitolina hit one more costly miss and she threw her racket down onto the court. And everyone is running that clip today as a meltdown. Veteran loses her cool. Frustration boils over. Great thumbnail, easy story. I think that read is completely backwards. A counterpuncher does not get angry when she loses a point. Losing points is the job. She loses points on purpose, dozens of them, as part of a plan. Svitolina has lost more points on court than almost anyone in that draw, and she has never once needed to throw a racket about it. A counterpuncher gets angry when she runs out of options. That racket hitting the ground was not emotion. It was a status report. It was the exact moment Elina Svitolina realized she did not have an answer, and she realized it while the match was still level. Not down a set and a break. Not at match point. While it was still there to be won, that is why that clip matters. Not because it is dramatic. Because it is a timestamp. It tells you precisely when a 15-year professional understood that the problem in front of her was not solvable with anything she owns. And if you want the receipt, it is in the scoreline. 6 breaks of serve in under 100 minutes. That is not a player having a rough afternoon. That is a system being switched off. Now, I want to hear from you on this one, because I know it is a take. Drop a comment and tell me straight, do you think that Racket was frustration or was it recognition? I read every one of these and this is the exact kind of argument I want to have in the comments. Because here is the thing about everything I just told you. It is a theory. A good one, I think. But a theory is worthless without evidence, and I am not going to ask you to take my word for it. So let us test it. Because if I am right about this, it should have already shown up somewhere else. And it did. Test number 1. The surface. If Washington was about conditions, then changing the conditions has to change the result. That is how this works. If Eala won because the courts were fast, or the balls were flying, or the night air was helping her, then take those away, and you get a different scoreline. So take them away. Berlin. June. Grass. Low bounce. Fast through the court. The ball skids and stays down. It rewards flat hitting and punishes anybody who needs time. Washington, July. Hard court. Higher bounce, slower through the air, the ball sits up. It rewards exactly the kind of grinding baseline tennis that built Svitolina's entire career. Those are not similar environments. Those are opposite environments. A player who wins on one is often uncomfortable on the other. That is why the tour has surface specialists at all. Same result. 6-3, 6-4. Both times. The only thing that stayed constant between those two matches was the two human beings standing on the court, which means the variable was never the surface. It was the matchup. Exactly what we said it was. Test number 2. Was it just Svitolina? Fair question. Every player on tour has a bogey opponent. Somebody whose game just happens to sit wrong with theirs. Maybe Eala is simply a bad draw for one specific Ukrainian and this is a story about one head-to-head, not about a player. Then look at the rest of her week in Washington. Round 1, Zheng Qinwen. Olympic gold medalist. Former world number 4. Eala lost the first set and won the match 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. That third set was a demolition. Round 2, Leylah Fernandez. The defending champion of this exact tournament. 7th seed. Eala won 6-2. 7-6. Quarterfinal, Svitolina. 2nd seed, world number 10. 6-3, 6-4, an Olympic champion, a defending champion, and a top 10 player. 3 of them, in 4 days, by a player who was not seeded at all. That is not a bogey matchup. That is a level. Test number 3. The conversion rate. This is the number that should have been the headline on every article written this morning, and instead it got buried in paragraph 9. In 2026, Alexandra Eala has faced top 10 opponents 8 times. She has won 6. 75%. Now let me give you the context that makes that number mean something. Most players ranked between 25 and 35 finish an entire season with one top 10 win. Some get 2. A lot of them get 0, and it is not because they are bad. It is because beating elite players requires everything to go right on the same afternoon, and everything rarely does. Eala has 6. And it is the 1st of August. And understand what that statistic is actually measuring. It is not measuring talent. Plenty of players have talent, and talent shows up in flashes, one great match, a season, a viral highlight, and then nothing for 8 months. 75% measures repeatability. It measures whether the good version of you is the default version of you. And repeatability is the single line that separates a player about to enter the top 10 from a player who just has good days. Now here is one more thing, and I have not seen anyone say this yet today. Look at who is in the Washington semifinals. Jessica Pegula, Diana Schneider, Naomi Osaka, and Alexandra Eala. Eala is the only one of the 4 who was not among the top 4 seeds in this tournament. She is the only unseeded player left standing. And she got there through the hardest section of the entire draw. an Olympic gold medalist in round 1, the defending champion in round 2, the second seed in the quarterfinals. Every single opponent, a title holder of some kind. Not one of the other 3 semifinalists walked a road anywhere close to that. Nobody else had to beat 3 champions to get to Saturday. So think back to the question I asked you at the very start of this video. Why the same scoreline, on 2 different surfaces, 6 weeks apart? You have the answer now. Because the surface was never the variable. Because the opponent's greatest strength, that beautiful, patient, 15-year-old pattern recognition, is the exact thing a left-handed player who takes the ball early erases from the court. Because when you remove a counterpuncher's rhythm, you do not slow her down, you delete her. 24-13 in the return column. 6 breaks of serve. 5 straight broken games to open the match. A double fault to finish it. And a racket on the ground in the middle of the second set, thrown by a woman who had just realized there was nothing left to try. It all points the same direction. It always did. Which brings us to tonight. Because in a matter of hours, Alex Eala walks back out onto that court to face somebody this entire theory has never been tested against. Eala came into this week ranked 28 in the world. She is now up to 25 in the live rankings. Highest of her career, and the highest any Filipino player has ever been ranked, man or woman, in the history of the sport. Her 3rd semifinal of the season, and it is only August. But forget the number for a second, because tonight is the part I genuinely cannot predict. Naomi Osaka. 4 Grand Slam titles. Former world number 1. 2 Australian Opens, 2 US Opens. They have never played each other. Not once, at any level, in their entire careers. There is no head-to-head. There is no film. There is no pattern for either of them to study. And here is why everything we just spent 20 minutes building is about to get stress tested. Svitolina lost because Eala took away her rhythm. Osaka does not need rhythm. Osaka is the opposite type of player in almost every way that matters. She does not count beats. She does not build points. She does not wait for you to crack. She serves enormous, she steps in on the second ball, and she hits through you before a pattern ever gets a chance to exist. You cannot delete a rhythm from a player who was never using one. So the weapon that dismantled a former world number 3 twice in 6 weeks might do absolutely nothing tonight. That is the honest version. That is what makes this interesting, instead of predictable. And there is something bigger sitting underneath all of this, which I think people are going to look back on in a few years and realize they watched happen in real time. 18 months ago, there was not a single Filipino player inside the top 100 of the WTA, not one. Today, the chairman of this tournament, Mark Ein, says that over the last month, at least 80% of the ticketing requests his team received were people asking one question. When is Alex Eala playing? 80%. For one player. At a joint ATP and WTA event in the capital of the United States, that is not a results story anymore. That is a market story. And the person who put it best is the woman standing across the net tonight. Osaka was asked about the crowds Eala brings, and she said Japanese fans are extremely respectful, so quiet that when she wins a point, there is barely a sound. Then she talked about watching an Eala match at the Australian Open, and she said the atmosphere was mind-blowing to her. She did not think you could get a crowd like that in tennis. She said it felt like more than a basketball game, and she could not find the words to describe it. And she admitted that ever since then she has routinely checked in on Eala's story, just to keep watching it grow. A 4-time Grand Slam champion, saying out loud that she has been quietly following a 21-year-old. Tonight, they finally meet. So, the theory I just spent this whole video building either survives contact with one of the biggest hitters of her generation, or it falls apart in 90 minutes and I come back here and tell you I got it wrong. Both outcomes are worth watching. If you want to know which one it is, subscribe before you leave, because I am breaking down that match the moment the final point is played and you have now got all the context you need to actually understand what you are looking at. You will see things in that match tonight that 90% of the audience will miss. And leave me a prediction in the comments. Does Eala find a way to take the pace off and make Osaka create everything herself, or does Osaka simply overpower her? I have got my answer. Let us see if the court agrees.